Syngap Land. My name is Michael Grellia, and this is episode 137 of Syngap 10, your 10-minute recap of everything you know about Syngap 1. Today's Monday, March 25th, and you'll be hearing this on Tuesday, March 26th. But Monday, March 25th is a date you will need to remember because this is the day that Stoke announced some incredible news. Right? So I'm going to start this episode by talking about company updates. I'm going to talk about Stoke, Praxis, and Longboard, but I really am going to talk a lot about Stoke. Okay. I'm not going to repeat everything I've ever said about Stoke because this is the beauty of having a podcast. If you have no idea who Stoke is, go back immediately and watch episode 83. Links in the show notes. Stoke today announced some incredible results from their studies where they are dosing humans with their Tango technology, their ASO, to treat Dravet. The reason we are so stoked about Stoke, as they like to say, is because Stoke on their pipeline has Syngap as the next neurological haploinsufficiency they'll be treating. Or they are looking at. They haven't committed to a target yet. But anyway, point is, I often say it's good to be second. People get frustrated. This company, Praxis is working on the S-sodium channels, then they're going to work on Syngap. Stoke is working on Dravet, and then they're going to work on Syngap. So-and-so is working on whatever, and then they're going to work. Why are we always second, Mike? And I'm like, it's not always bad to be second, guys. Because Stoke is learning a lot right now. Basically, if you actually go back to watch episode 111 too. In episode 111, I told you when Stoke released some earlier results that the results were amazing. And everyone who knew what they were talking about said, oh my gosh, we have a therapy for the Dravet. And they said, by the way, there were some adverse events. A couple people had some bad responses. And the stock went down. Right. One of the very first disease-modifying therapies for one of the most terrible genetic epilepsies on earth. Substantial progress. This was back in episode 111. And the stock went down. And I was like, this is bonkers. This makes no sense. Today, you will see that I was right. Right? Go and read this press release in the show notes. It is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. I'm going to read you some quotes. It's generally a bad idea to read to you in these podcasts because I end up misspeaking and looking silly, but goodness, this is amazing stuff. So I'm starting mid-flight. Today, the company also announced clearance from the US FDA that allow patients 3 doses of 70 milligrams followed by a continued dosing at 45. Based on this regulatory update and these data, the company plans to meet with regulatory agencies to discuss a registrational study that includes initial doses of 70 milligrams followed by continued dosing at 45 milligrams. Why do we care? Go back to episode 83, where I said, dose, interval, time on drug. We don't know what the dosing for these things are. We don't know what the interval between dosings are. We don't know how long people need to be on drug because this is a brand new kind of medicine. If your kid was diagnosed with Syngap, 10, 15 years ago, which is when we started diagnosing humans, people were like, I don't know. Sorry about your luck. Your kid's got this genetic mutation, haploinsufficiency, blah, blah, blah. Go home, take care of your kid. That is no longer what people are saying. Now they're saying there's companies like Stoke Therapeutics who are showing that we can make a medicine delivered directly to the central nervous system, and we can modify the cause of the problem. And now Stoke is saying you got to start with 70 milligrams and do it a couple times, then you can do maintenance dosing at 45. Holy smokes! And guess what? All that information should translate to Syngap if they go after Syngap. This is incredible. Now, this stuff doesn't just happen overnight. Here we are, March 2024. They announced this study that I got so excited about in episode 83. I had to go back and look at episode 83 just to figure out when that was. It was over a year ago. Because I was excited about Ed Kay speaking at our 2022 meeting. It's 2024. This was like November-ish. So it's taken them almost a year and a half. Give them credit, year and a quarter. But they're at the point where they're fine-tuning dose. And why are they fine-tuning dose? I continue to read from this amazing press. I might frame this. The totality of these data provide compelling evidence and support the potential for STK-001 to be a disease-modifying medicine for patients with Dravet syndrome by treating the underlying cause of disease rather than just the symptoms, said Edward M.K., M.D., Chief Executive Officer of Stoke Therapeutics, who, by the way, and this might be on his resume, but might be not, spoke at the SYNGAP 1 2022 annual conference. He was our keynote. STK-001 is a funny story about Ed. He walked up to me the day of, because I wear a suit one day a year at this meeting, and Ed walks up to me and he says, you polish up pretty nice. Yeah, he said it slightly different, but that was the gist. Fast forward to 3 months ago, 2023 meeting. Ed K walks in. I'm wearing my annual suit. Ed's like, polish up pretty nice. I'm like, Ed, you said that to me last year. And he was like, oh, it got me. Anyway, I love this man. STK-001 is the first medicine in development to demonstrate substantial and durable reductions in seizure frequency and improvements in the multiple measures of cognition and improvements in multiple measures of cognition and behavior. Not only did this drug lower seizures, but it improved cognition and behavior. Why? Because it went to the root of the problem. It helped the brain make more NaV1.1, which is the protein made by SCM1A. We're very lucky. We have SYNGAP1 protein. It makes SYNGAP. Very simple. Good job, Rick. Some of these gene names and the proteins they make, they have nothing to do with each other. DLG4, PSD95. Why? But anyway, root of the problem. I'm so excited about this. These effects were observed in patients who were already taking the best available anti-seizure medicines, which confirms our highly differentiated mechanism of action and approach to treating this disease. There's probably a simpler way to say that. But what he's saying here is these people were already on every drug imaginable. They had such bad seizures. They were taking Fintepla. They were taking clobazam. They were taking Epidiolex. They were taking all the things. And they're still seizing enough that we could put a drug in them and see a demonstrable change. Because none of those drugs, those powerful drugs that we subject our children to, were actually going to the brain and dealing with the lack of the protein it required. We look forward to meeting with regulatory agencies to discuss our plans for a randomized controlled registrational study and to provide an update in upcoming discussions, end quote. So on the one hand, oh my God, this is exciting. On the other hand, we look forward to meeting with regulatory agencies to discuss our plans for a randomized controlled registrational study. That means phase 3, guys. On the one hand, this could make STK-001 a drug that sits on shelves. And when a child is diagnosed with Dravet, it's like, terrible news, your child has Dravet. Wonderful news, here's a drug, we're going to stick it in his spine, it's going to change their life. Amazing. First Dravet, then SYNGAP. Amazing. Bad news, we can't do that tomorrow. We now have to do an entire phase 3 trial. God, those things are so painful, expensive, and time-consuming. When we already seem to know the drug works. But this is the system. There's only so much we can do. I'm not going to complain about the system today. I'm too excited about this. And hopefully, as many children as possible will get the drug in that phase 3 until we can get this drug out to everyone. New quote, and then I'll go on my podcast. For decades, the primary goal of treating Dravet syndrome has been to control the frequency and severity of seizures. But as we can now see from natural history data, the reason I'm reading this quote is because Joe's talking about natural history data. Many patients still experience high rates of seizure frequency and fall further and further behind in their neurodevelopment. This is important. Because of their natural history data, they know that as children experience more and more seizures, they fall further behind in their development. I'm not going to put words in his mouth. Says Joseph Sullivan, MD, FAES, professor of neurology and pediatrics, director of blah, blah, UCSF, and a prominent researcher in Dravet syndrome. Dr. Sullivan is a very big deal. That's what that says. Dr. Sullivan goes on. A 50% reduction in seizures is an important measure of clinical efficacy, so an 80% reduction on top of any benefit patients may be already getting from their baseline anti-seizure regime is profound. Neurologists don't use words like profound, unless they're really excited. The further evidence of improvements in skills like communication, behavior, socialization, and movement distinguish this approach from anything we have seen to date and mark an entry into a new era in the treatment of Dravet syndrome. With respect to Dr. Sullivan, MD, FAES, I would just change that last bit of the quote a little bit. anything we have seen to date and mark our entry into a new era in the treatment of monogenic neurological haploinsufficiencies. This is not just about Dravet. This is not just about Dravet. This is about SYNGAP. This is about SCN2A. This is about SCN8A. This is about KCNT1. I could rattle off a lot of gene names. But what Stoke is doing right now is showing us that at an appropriate dose and interval, they can change the course of a terrible disease. And it is our deep and sincere hope that the same thing is said about SYNGAP faster than they were able to say it for Stoke based on all they've learned. So that's exciting. Keep stoking your prayers. And hope they have good news about a SYNGAP candidate soon. But temper that hard-earned excitement with the reality that they announced some of the trials they're talking about here about a year and a half ago. And now they're excited to do another trial. This stuff is not going to happen fast, which is why we're doing repurposing, but that's an entirely separate topic. And do go back and listen to 83 and 111, because those were good episodes that'll explain more about Stoke. I'm not going into it today. Also exciting news recently announced. Praxis Precision Medicine, which is another company working on SYNGAP ASOs, put out a press release showing great news about Prax 628 and another Prax gene and another Prax. They've got 3 different things that are happening. None of them treat SYNGAP. Mike, why are you so excited? Because like Stoke, SYNGAP is right there on their pipeline. And when these companies are successful with whatever they're working on, that puts money in the bank, that gives investors confidence to give them money so they can work on the next things on their pipeline, which is us. So congratulations, Praxis. And also, Praxis is working to their credit on some very hard diseases with multiple approaches. So they're working on 2A, which is another sodium channelopathy, and they're working with small molecules and ASOs. And remember, this is a new age. We didn't have disease-modifying therapies. And now we do. And as companies like Stoke and Praxis, who are truly cutting-edge, trailblazing, all the cliches, they're hard-earned here. They're developing the skill set that it will take to get a drug through for a disease like SYNGAP1. Good job, Stoke. Good job, Praxis. Links are in the show notes. Read their press releases. I also want to observe, by the way, that given that these things will take so long for these ASOs, because they're novel, right? We didn't even know how much to give. Small molecules are also very important. Now, as you might recall, we have a pipeline, links in the show notes. Go look at our pipeline. There's small molecules, there's genetic therapies, whatever. Not on that pipeline is Longboard Pharma. And why is Longboard Pharma not on there? Because Longboard has a drug called Besitracin. Why don't people ever give drugs names that make any, that you can say out loud? Bexicaserin, LP352. I like LP352 better. Doesn't matter. LP352, that now christened Bexicaserin, whatever, is a drug that they had incredible results. They announced incredible results on phase 1-2. And then in their most recent financial report, they said, actually, we went back with our statisticians and we reviewed the numbers and we made a mistake. And I was like, uh-oh. The results are actually better than we announced. Oh, that's good news. That is a drug that I expect to go, that they state publicly, will go into a trial maybe sometime this year. And that will be open to all DEEs. So SYNGAP family, snap out of it. If you're in the corner rocking, being like, my kid is sick, it's too late for my kid. End it. Stoke and Praxis are working on things. Other companies are working on things. But Longboard Pharma is going to be having a small molecule trial, I don't know, sometime in the next 12 months. And as you know from my other podcast, and I'm not going to derail myself today, we're looking at a couple of molecules on our repurposing work due to the generosity of our donors. None of this work's possible without donations, guys. Donate to SRF. So, kudos Stoke, kudos Praxis, Longboard, keep going, and families, be hopeful. I'm going to talk, speaking of hope, oh my gosh, it's like I planned this, but I didn't. It was beautiful. Speaking of hope, there is a mom, recently diagnosed mom here in California, who lives in way up north and is seen at UCSF. So I've had the pleasure of meeting her a few times because she comes and stops at my house and we say hi. And she, her full-time job is to take care of her little girl. Her little girl's named Hope. She's an utterly beautiful girl. Click on the link in the show notes. And so mom takes care of beautiful little Hope. And I said, you know what I say to all newly diagnosed families? I said, gosh, it'd be great if you could take part in these studies. There's a study down at UCLA. We could go there. There's a study at Cook Children's. We could go there. And oh, by the way, there's a natural history study at CHOP. I know Philly's a long way away, but you really should do it. And this mom, parents, it's hard. Maybe one day I'll let you know, blah, blah, blah. This mom's sitting there, she's drinking tea, and she's like, you know what, Mike? Why don't I just do them all? I was like, well, it's a great answer, except it's a lot of travel, and it's hard to travel with Hope. I'm looking at Hope. She's sitting on my kitchen counter, and she's like, no, Hope loves driving. We'll just drive. I was like, Philadelphia is like a long way. She's like, no, I love to drive. Hope loves to drive. This is my full-time job. I have the ability to do all three. I'm going to do all the studies, Mike. And that's what's happening. So Rainey, who's Hope's mom, is about to drive from Northern California down to LA, over to Texas, up to Philly, and back, all to put her little girl through 3 different studies to contribute data to advance SYNGAP science. It is amazing. So read the blog, Hope4theCure, and links in the show notes, of course. And of course, it's a fundraiser because we need money. All these things take money, right? So, be inspired by what Rainey and Hope are doing because they are taking time out of their life to drive around this country just to take this beautiful, precious little Syngapian and put her in machines at UCLA and at Texas and in Philadelphia so we can get more and more data so we can treat our kids. Remember what Dr. Sullivan said in that press release. Based on the natural history study data, we understand blah, blah, blah. When Stoke announced they were working on Dravet, they didn't say, come and sign up for this trial tomorrow. They said they spent a whole year on a natural history study. They spent a whole year on a natural history study that I believe was called Butterfly. And then they went on to name all their other trials, Admiral and Monarch. And it was someone was very thoughtful about all this. We do not want, I've said this a long time ago, we do not want Stoke and Praxis and everyone else to say, we want to work on SYNGAP 1, but there's no data available. So before we do anything, we're going to have to fund an entire natural history study. A, it's going to take too long. B, they're not going to spend that money. They're going to go to another disease that has a natural history study, which is why we're so excited about the natural history study that's happening at CHOP right now, which is why I say to every family, get yourself over to CHOP. If you've been living under a rock, there's a natural history study at CHOP, and there are about 30-ish spots left. That's these are round numbers. I haven't looked at the reports lately, but about 70 people have signed up, and we were given about 100 spots. And I've been talking to the team who's calling families and saying, hey, do you know about this study? It's an incredible opportunity. See some clinicians, you get expert reviews, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, there's some families out there who don't know there's a natural history study at CHOP. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how did we screw this up? And so we're just calling people. We're calling everybody. Why haven't you signed up for this natural history study? You get to see some world-class experts in SYNGAP, and you get to contribute data to a study that will help us get therapies faster. You want Stoke and Praxis and others to move on to SYNGAP ASAP? Let's get that natural history study data out. Why do you think I was so excited in the previous episode 136, about the study out of Boston Children's Hospital based on citizen data? Because that gets us closer to companies working on SYNGAP 1, my friends. That's why I'm so excited. So, celebrate Rainey and Hope. Maybe donate. Watch them. Follow Rainey on social. Email ENDD at chop.edu and get yourself in that study. It'll benefit your child here and now. It's a clinical visit. They'll give you great advice. These people know SYNGAP. There's some people out there going to doctors who have no idea what they're talking about. I hear horror stories. I heard another horror story this weekend. Some doctor's like, oh, it's just SYNGAP. It's not a big deal. I wanted to I still might call that person's boss. But the family asked me to wait. Anyway, There are some people out there who have no idea what they're talking about taking care of our kids, and the people at CHOP know exactly what they're talking about. So do yourself a favor, get yourself to CHOP, do the community a favor, get yourself a CHOP, get your child's data in that study. And then also, speaking of studies, if you have a child 17 or older, it might even be 16 because it's like a 2-year study. The team at under Dr. Andrade up in Toronto has a study on SYNGAP1 adults. And if God is kind, all of our SYNGAP kiddos are going to grow up into SYNGAP adults because this disease does not change their lifespan, right? So a study on adults is essential because the vast majority of the data out there is about kiddos. And as our kids become adults, finding informed care is harder and harder, which is why we have to make sure there's publications for doctors to reference, which is why we begged Dr. Andrade to work on our kids. We are recruiting for that study now. This is an SRF-funded study. Sign up for that study. If you have a kiddo, 16, 17, 18, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever, sign up for that trial. It's a study. It is a remote study. You can do it at home. It's questionnaires and interviews. Yes, they're a pain, but oh my gosh, that data will be such a blessing for the care of our kids and all the Syngapians who come after us. So 1, thank you, Hope. 2, sign up for CHOP. 3, sign up for the adult study if you can. 4, there is still a quality of life study being led by UCB. UCB is a large drug company. We want them to know about SYNGAP. I ask everyone to please fill that in. They want at least 50 participants. I think we're at about 30 right now. Thank you to those 30. Everybody else, chop people, syngap.fen/QOL24. All right. We're in the home stretch here. I don't even want to know how long I've talked, but gosh, this is so exciting. I get so excited. 21 minutes. Goodness. Okay, fundraiser. Sprint4Syngap is soon. It's in April. And we have 247 supporters so far who've helped us raise $79,000. That's great, but I need like triple that, guys. We've got to raise some money. We have a lot of grants coming in. Team Tavilla is over half of that $79,000 at $47,000. Good job, Team Tavilla. Susan, Stella, Sandy, Ernie, Tina. There's so many Tavillas. It's crazy. Thank you all. Good job. You're killing it. Also, big thanks to all the other teams. I'm just going to name the ones who are over 1,000. Phoebe, Kiera, Kaia, and Gracyn. Great job, guys, for fundraising in advance. Everybody, it is not too late. Sprint4Syngap is coming soon. It's in about a month. Get your team. Email all your friends, ask them to support the SYNGAP Research Fund. There is no better way to improve the future of your Syngapian than to invest in SYNGAP1 research, which is exactly what we fund. And as a reminder, every team who raises over $500 will be put in for a chance to win a Rifton modified bicycle. Thank you so much, Rifton, for donating that. It's a huge deal. So links in the show notes. Just type Sprint4Syngap 2024 into Google. You'll find our site. Links in the show notes, whatever. I'm going to end with social matters. We have subscribe to YouTube, guys. We only have 953 subscribers on there. I got to get to 1,000. Why do I care about social? Mike, why are you so obsessed with numbers? Well, here's why. Last link in the show notes. Read this blog. There was a mom in Czech Republic, who, just wondering how old I am, got diagnosed. Read this is a little blog. It's not long at all. Ed wrote a very nice intro. It's almost as long as his blog. And this mom was diagnosed and hit us up on found us on Instagram, reached out to us on Instagram. About an hour later, Ed answers all her questions. And next thing you know, she's processing it and realizing she's not alone and she's got a source of hope in a day, in a few hours. When I was diagnosed, it took me weeks to find a sane parent. This is a whole other story. In a few hours. That's how fast we are connecting with people. Why? Because social media. How did we find a mom in the Czech Republic? She found us. Why? Because we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, whatever it's called, X. Before Elon broke it. Now I'm on LinkedIn. Doesn't matter. Social media matters, you guys. Supporting, following, liking, retweeting, reposting what SRF does, making sure you are following us and liking us. It seems silly, but it's not, because the next 100,000 whatever parents who get diagnosed, they need to find us too. Because as crazy as I look right now, blah, 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 links. These videos go out, people find them, and people realize that they have an option other than despair. We have to choose hope. We have to fundraise. We have to keep investing in the science because we are making a difference. And we are bringing therapies, repurposed molecules, small molecules, ASOs, AAVs, all of these things, we're bringing them from the future into our kids' present as fast as we can. Thank you all for all our donors who support our work, all of you for putting up with this 20-something minute episode, and to Stoke Therapeutics for being such a trailblazer and being a source of hope, and Praxis and Longboard and everybody else. I'm so excited.